Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of No Names All Game. Today is Monday, October 26th. My name is Chris Henkin. I am mentally, physically, emotionally exhausted. Joined by my co-host, Pat Colicchio. As always, your Nittany Lions are unfortunately 0-1 to start the season after just a brutal game. Lots of things went wrong. A lot of things are questionable. We have a ton to talk about, but let's start here, Pat. It seems like the internet is split. Half of the world, the Penn State world, is the season is over. Why even bother? Don't even care. And the other half is we are going to beat Ohio State next week. No one will remember this, and we're going to go on and come back and win some Big Ten championship or something. Where do you fall in that meter? Like, where's your like if the season is over at 0 and we're beating Penn State as 10, where are you at?
6, probably.
Okay.
I don't think the season is over, nor do I think we're going to beat Ohio State. But, I mean, here's, like, we've reached a point in our program where every time we lose to someone who isn't Ohio State, it's a disaster.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, I don't know if I'd call it unfair, but it is a little unrealistic. Like, how many programs are really living like that where they lose one game a year?
Yeah. I mean,
and the thing is,
football.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And honestly, the only teams that do have like whose fan bases go only one loss is acceptable. Unfortunately for us, all those other programs make the college football playoff anyway when they lose one game because everyone decides that one didn't matter. You know?
Yeah. It's kind of the state of college football right now, and this is I've said this probably exact quote many a times. This is why we love college football, and this is why college football kills us because every week truly is make or break. I mean, the teams who don't look at their schedule and say, okay, one loss will kill us, and that's it, is the Ohio States, the Bamas, the Clemsons, because one, they don't think they're going to lose because they're that damn good. And if they do, their resume will be strong enough. They'll be able to kind of make it up in their championship game. This is not me like hating on them. That's just, again, the state of it.
Yeah. Also, they get a benefit of the doubt. When they lose a game, people go, oh, it was a fluke.
Yeah, well, let me say this because we're going to be pretty negative on this episode by default. We did lose to an unranked Indiana. Like this isn't a fluke. This isn't like we should have this should have been a close game. Like this was a bad loss, and we'll own that. We'll take that. I feel like I'm rambling to the point already of like. Well,
but like Ohio State can lose to Purdue 2 years ago and still make the college football playoff. You know what I mean? That's the difference.
Yeah, fair enough.
When they lose to a bad team. It's, obviously this was a fluke. It was a bad game. When we lose to a bad team, it's, we were overrated.
Yeah, and I think
those are the difference between our programs that kind of is unfortunate for us, but also I get it.
Yeah, and that's because of our history, right? It's because we have been that good to great team for the last couple of years, and we haven't earned that benefit of the doubt, right? A top team that loses on a fluke game, sure, it is a fluke because they've earned that. We haven't gotten there yet, and good, bad, and different. That's just the reality of it. Yeah. So for listeners of this show for the last 2 seasons, this is our 3rd season. Typically, we give out our awards for the week. We give out a lion, a lamb, best player, worst player kind of thing. I personally don't want to give out a lamb because there's a lot of negative here, and I don't want to focus on one person or one situation, but I'm sure we'll talk about all
I think we got to stay consistent, you know?
I've already failed.
We can't bail on the program just because of a loss.
I've already failed in my stay consistent because this was supposed to be recorded Sunday and put out today, but I was way too hungover, and I think I'm still hungover. I think one, because of this loss, and 2, because I'm a 30-year-old person who can't drink like he's 22 anymore. That being said, let's start with a lion. Let's start with some positivity. We'll rattle through some of the other positives as well, but let's start with your lion, your MVP of the week. Who is it?
I'm going with Jahan Dotson.
Okay.
This was, I think, the biggest question mark for our offense heading into the season was the receiving core. Everyone going, there's no real experience there. But the one guy everyone talked about, who has to step up is Jahan Dotson. And I thought he did. I mean, not a massive amount of receptions, but 94 yards and a touchdown. I am never going to complain about that. One of the things we talked about on our pregame for this is, can Jahan Dotson be like a threat to put up 100 yards a game, like in that neighborhood? And that's exactly what he did. And one of those receptions, that touchdown was huge when it happened. It was in the biggest moment. It was a nicely run route, and it was a good catch. And that was, had we won, that would have been the turning point in the game.
Yeah, I mean, that was the go-ahead touchdown at the time, I believe. I think that put us up 21-20, if I remember correctly. And yeah, it was a beautiful route. Their coverage was a bit busted. Cliff steps up. Yeah, probably could have settled into the pocket a little bit more, but we're talking positive right now. He steps up.
It was also a
it
well-designed play, though, because it was, I think it was Parker Washington kind of cleared out that cornerback, like made the cornerback choose between going with Jahan and him. And I think the corner must have thought there was going to be safety help over the top, and there wasn't. But, like, you know, that's what makes, like, it was a well-designed, well-called play by Kirk Shiraka there.
I'm very happy with Jahan. I mean, yes,
it's a play that forced them to make a mistake.
Yeah. You know, 60 of his 94 come on that play, but final stat line for 94 with a touchdown. Of course, you're always going to take that. Shout out to Jahan. You are a Lion this week. Mine, I thought this was going to be the clear-cut fronter. My Lion is Shaka Toney. This man is so good. Him and Jason Owe both played incredibly well. Tony's numbers come up on the stat sheet a whole lot more, but Owe was in the backfield all day as well. So I'm going with Shaka. 7 total tackles, 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss. He had back-to-back sacks on that last drive. First and second down, second to last drive. You know what I mean? On that should have been last drive. And I mean, we're going to talk about all of the things that people are pointing to as why we lost and what we should have done and what we could have done. I mean, it comes down to he gets back-to-back sacks where we're in a position to win that game. And he did that single-handedly on that late drive in the fourth quarter. I thought he played incredibly well off the edge. Yes, their O-line is supposedly not as good. I was really excited to see him come out. We talked about him all offseason. We talked about he's put on weight, he's put on mass. He is, making his name to be, a high to mid-round pick in this upcoming NFL draft. And I think he did that. I think he looked fantastic. Shout out to the Toney family that were there supporting. It was just awesome to see him kind of fly around there and give me something to root for and something to look forward to in the rest of the season here. So shout out Shaka, you are my Lion. I'm going to plead the fifth on the Lamb. Personally, I'm going to take a step back. We're going to talk about all of it, so I'm not going to give to one single individual or group or situation. But Pat, go ahead. Who is your Lamb? I'm making the bad guy.
Jordan Stout.
Really?
Yeah. Because I think everyone else. No, sorry, Jake Pinniger.
Oh my God! You just gave me a heart attack. Woof.
Wrong kicker. My bad, guys.
Okay.
My bad.
Okay.
Jake Pinniger.
Yeah.
In my opinion, like everyone else who did something that helped us lose this game also did something that is the only reason we were in this game except Jake Pinniger. He was the only facet of the game that I thought was just a negative.
Yeah, so I mean, if you look at it, it's not great. So 0 for 2 on field goals. He misses I think it's like a 20-something yard chip shot.
25 and I think 47.
And 47.
The 47, okay, the college kicker, you can let that go. But like the 25's pretty inexcusable. And let's be honest, if he hits either of those, we don't go to overtime.
Yeah, it's so tough.
Like Sean Clifford had a bad game, but Sean Clifford was also like one of the only reasons we were in this game.
Yeah,
like there were highs and lows for Sean. He's a big part of the reason he lost, but he's also, he also like if you took away the 2 interceptions, had a great game. Now that's a weird thing to say, but like you know what I mean. He was up and down.
I do.
I thought Pinniger was just down.
Yeah, listen, he was 5 for 5 on extra points. Let's get some positive spin zone in there. As Pat rolls his eyes at me. No, I hear what you're saying, and I think for me, I'm going to give a very Coach Franklin answer here. Like, there's so many things that you can say were negative, but at any point in the game, that changes how things go, right? If we kick that field goal, play calls and schemes and strategy changes, right? So we can't say just that lost it to us, but yes, those were six massive points in the end of it that came down to it and could have helped us win that game. I think there's a ton that let's stay on the kickers for a minute since we're there. I don't love the split. I talked about this all year last year, the split between Pinniger and Stout. I think and again, these coaches know the guys better than I do. They know, they know football better than I do, but like that's got to mess with your mentality a little bit. The split in general, but if we're gonna have a split, it's I believe it's what was Pinniger anything under 49 and Stout,
it's basically Stout's 50 longer.
So in my opinion, Stout has the big leg. Why not trot him out there for the 47 yarder? because guess what? Pinniger missed, and if you don't trot him out there, now you're messing with his head, right? Now you're messing with his confidence. Hey, you're the 50 and under guy. It's 47. If I go and I pick Stout, now I'm messing with your head, and I don't know. That just doesn't feel right to me. If you put Stout in there, I mean, he missed the 57 yarder at the very end of the game by like a foot. It looked like. So he has the leg. Why not put him in for the 47? You
I
know?
mean, my guess is, I mean, also, as much as I'm kind of hating on Jake Pinniger in this podcast, he was 11 for 12 last season. He's a very accurate kicker. Not on Saturday, but
Yeah.
like throughout the rest of his career, that he's a guy who just drills shorter field goals, but doesn't have the leg for the big ones. So
Yeah.
I'd rather it's taking the sure points. Obviously, now I sound stupid saying that because they weren't sure points.
Not so sure. Yeah.
What are usually sure points?
Yeah, and like I said, I get it. I get why we have the split, but for me, it's like I don't know if you're gonna have a short guy and a long guy, like 50-50 shouldn't be the split there. Like for me, I don't know. I would say Pinniger's like 40 and under or 35 and under, like they're true
45
short
and
ones.
under. Yeah.
Yeah, but again, what's the difference between 45 and 47? Like when you have that split, I don't know. To me, it's like either you stick to it and you risk missing, right? Because you didn't have your long guy in there for a 47, but if it was a 49 or a 50, you probably would have had your long guy. You know what I mean? I don't like that strategy at all. I would rather have one guy and live and die by him, but that's why I'm not a college football head coach. Shout out to Jake Pinniger. You are a lamb today. Sorry, buddy. It's tough, man. It's really tough. And like, again, you don't want to hate a kid. You don't want to there was a lot of positivity I saw on Twitter, which is
he's been good for our program. Like I'm not gonna sit here and be like, cut Jake Pinniger. He's a bum. No, he's a good kicker.
Well, he
had a bad game.
Still is still on the internet. You get so much more of the nobody should be speaking bad about this player than people actually speaking bad about them. So, shout out, you're a lamb for this week. I'm sure you'll be fine the rest of the year. I think you're going to be great. Again, I prefer one kicker over two, but I love our guys. So. All right, I don't have any notes for this episode. I told you that. I did a rewatch earlier today, put out a bunch of GIFs. If you saw that on Twitter, tried to get some positivity going. You want to start with some positives, and then we'll go into Twitter questions which will lead us to talk about all the negatives. You talked about Shaka already. You talked about Dotson, some good positives there. Pat Freiermuth being back, fantastic seeing him get that touchdown right off the bat. I love even rewatching today. I loved that call. It was like 4th and 1, 4th and 2. Really nice to see him, and he leans into the camera. I couldn't hear it because I was out of the bar watching, and he goes, "I'm back, which was just awesome. What else did you see that was positive? What did you like?
That one-handed catch by Pat Freiermuth was
Beautiful,
timely, and huge. I said Sean Clifford, when he was on, seemed great to me. He completed nearly 70% of his passes yesterday. And it coming into this game, if I had told you, hey, Sean Clifford's going to complete 70% of his passes, it was actually 69, which is nice. But for 3 touchdowns, 240 yards, and he's going to run for another, you would have gone, of course, not only we win, we're covering the spread.
Yeah.
And so I saw improvements out of him in the general game that I liked. It was the 2 really bad interceptions. But here's the thing. I think that's unlike him. He threw 7 interceptions all last season. He's generally good at, if the play is not there, he throws it away. So it's one of those things that I think this is an anomaly for his performance. And honestly, I think this loss was kind of an anomaly for our team. Yeah, now, there's no moral victories in football. It still counts as a loss. But, like, I don't look at this game and go, holy shit, look what happened. We're going 500.
Yeah, I don't look at it and say we're going 500, but I don't know if I'm quite as high on Cliff. Yes, he did some like 119 on the ground with a touchdown. 70% is great. But I
thought his pocket presence was better too.
See, that's what worries me, and I'll save that because it's the positive section of the podcast. But I think there's a lot that scares me there. So I will save that. Let's keep going positive. I thought Joey Porter Jr. looked really good. We talked about him starting corner opposite of Tariq. I thought Tariq actually looked pretty good as well. Didn't love our safety play as much, despite the interception from Wade. Thank you very much. But I thought Joey Porter, making his first start, he had the sack early on that went untouched, and in general, I thought he looked the part, played pretty well, ended with 5 tackles. A sack and one pass defended. So really liked that as well.
Yeah, Lamont had a bad first half, but had some real big moments too.
Yeah, and I'll
And
say this too. I'll say this. I think if we're sticking on the positives, I think all in all our defense played pretty well, which like sounds weird to say because like yeah, we let them drive down on us with a minute and 40 seconds left at the very end of the game, but like we put our defense in that position.
they
Like
held them to a total of 211 yards
you can't be mad at
and
that.
less than half of our time of possession. And like the fact of the matter is, if it wasn't for two turnovers deep in our own zone,
Hmm. Yeah, the points wouldn't be on the board.
we win that game by 10 points in regulation.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean there were so many stats of like in history when a team, outgains another team by 250 yards, it's like 300-0 or something like no one's ever lost. So like to your point about it being an anomaly, like yeah, this was a in a nutshell 2020 is weird. We're living in the twilight zone, nothing makes sense. We just lost to Indiana. And this was a massive win for them. I'm going into the negatives from the positives, but
Yeah,
this was a
well, yeah.
massive like this was massive. They had the stat they kept flashing. They hadn't beat it in a top 10 team since like 1987 or 90 something. I don't know. Like this was massive for them. Yes, it was weird for us. It was an anomaly for us. But do I think it's program defining? I hope not. Do I think it's season defining? I hope not. Like, yeah, it sucks that we got to go into the Ohio State game next. Bouncing off after this. But like, yeah, it's kind of tough. So there are some positives. I think there's a lot. There's a lot to like coming from the game when you look at just like the pieces of it. But overall, we got outplayed. There were a lot of bad decisions, a lot of mental mistakes, a lot of misses, and we lost. Um, so let's all right. Let's before we go into the Twitter questions, let's go to the two most talked about things in the world because this is what we're talking about. Devin Ford running in for that touchdown at the very end. You can see it on the rewatch today. You can see very clearly Indiana is letting him score. Like their safeties are just standing their hands up. What are your thoughts on that play, on that score, on that decision? Where do you land on a lot of it?
I mean, obviously, it was the wrong decision. If he hadn't scored, I'm pretty sure we could have just bled the clock to the point where they have like 14 seconds. Um, and I don't, sure they could still win from there, but I don't think they would have. Um, there's a lot of the biggest problem I've seen from like the biggest criticism I've seen from that is that is somehow James Franklin's fault, that this wasn't drilled into them. Every player has said, and this they're also trying to do this without throwing Devin under the bus. Said, yeah, we were told not to score. Like it was known not to score. Scoring was his fault. It's an understandable mistake. Because I think it was a big deal to get a first down there. We did have to get a first down in order to like guarantee winning the game.
Yeah, they had one timeout left at that point, and there was a minute and 40 something seconds
And
left.
it was third down, right?
No, that was first and 10. That was the first play.
Was it?
Yes. So that this
Okay.
is this is the problem, and this is where it is James Franklin's fault. And I am a James Franklin stan. You know this. I love that man. I would do anything for him. I do put the blame on him. Is it a mental mistake by Devin Ford? Of course. Of
You
course.
think we should have just knelt?
Well, if you're not going to kneel, here's the thing. One, if you are going to run that play, you as James Franklin grab Devin Ford's helmet before he runs onto the field and say, "Son, get down. Do not score." Like in his post-game press conference, he kind of avoided the question the first time as to not put pressure on Devin and throw him under the bus, which is the right thing to do. He's like, "Hey guys, there's a lot of plays you could look at. Let's not focus on that one." And then like reporters kept asking him. So one reporter was like, "Hey James, just to be clear, like, what do you think you should have done? What did you say to do?" He goes, "Yeah, I think we should have got down. Our plan was get as much as you can and get down." So like, if that's your plan, get as much as you can when you get down. One, I personally think you. How many times did you direct QB run all game with Cliff? Plenty. He is your veteran leader. He knows what's going on versus Devin Ford, who is now technically a third string running back coming into the season that got thrust into the spotlight here. Sure, should he have known to get down? Yeah, but like that's a mistake that I personally trust Cliff more than I trust Devin Ford there. Like, hey, just run a few and get down. That was the plan. Just get as much as you can and get down. I want Cliff there. Two, I think that's got to be literally every coach, Franklin, Bowen, whoever's on the sideline there, like in the huddle before they go, hey, get down, get down, get down. And I don't know if that happened. Like I think yes, they all said it, but like it just didn't feel like that happened. Otherwise, it would have gone the way it should have. So does it suck? Yeah. Should your defense be able to stop them with a minute 42 left? You hope, but like shit happens. This is football. So all in all, it's a shitty play. But like to me, I just don't even like the handing it off there. I don't.
Yeah, I get it, and it's one of those things where had Devin Ford gotten down to the 3-yard line, we all go, "What a great play call! First down!"
Yep.
Like it ices the game. I'll give you this: like the risk reward to what happened, clearly not good.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I'll
it
tell you what,
didn't work. It
he'll
didn't
never make
work.
that he'll never make that mistake again.
Yeah,
But yeah, it was 1st and 10 at the 14, a minute 42 left. They had one timeout. So personally, for me, it's your run with Cliff for a couple of yards. They take their timeout, then you knee it, or you run it again with Cliff if you have to. Then hopefully you kick a field goal with a couple of seconds left. I don't know. It sucks. We move on. They march down the field, and Penix. Listen, man, give it up to Penix. He was getting hurried, pressured, hit all game from our
and he had a
defensive
bad
line.
first half. He missed
Yeah,
some throws that they could have scored on. They could have continued drives on. Give credit to Indiana on that last drive.
he looked
I
really,
thought
really
I
great.
thought at the beginning our coverage was a little soft, but they made 2 catches on that drive that were like we pressured him and our cornerbacks were there in coverage
Yeah,
and they just made the play.
yeah.
Like
They
and Tom
outplayed us.
Allen, Tom Allen's got balls of steel. You got to give him
Mhm.
that. Like credit where credit is due. Indiana like showed up, especially on that last drive.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's finish this. Actually, one more thing I forgot about. A lot of people were talking about too. So Devin Ford scores. We're up 27-20. We opt to kick the extra point, go 28-20. Some people are saying you should be going for 2 there because if you go for 2, you put the game out of reach. You're up 9, right? They cannot come back in one possession. There's a minute 40 left. There's unlikely that they're going to score, get 9 onside kick, score again. I don't know. That just doesn't seem like it's in Franklin's DNA.
But
I didn't
also,
expect him.
if he had gone for 2 and we'd missed, we would have lost in regulation.
Well, no, because then they would have to go to 2 for winning. We were up 7 in
They
that
did
thing.
go for 2.
What right? But what I'm
No,
saying is,
we were up 8. They went for 2 and they got it.
I understand that. But what I'm saying is,
Like
it still would have forced the issue. And if we make that play on to like, the point is they would still have to go for 2 for the win rather than overtime. Which again, maybe they would have because clearly they did that in overtime
I think it's
anyway.
clear that they would have.
Well, yeah, because again, they had nothing to lose. This is their
Yeah,
biggest game to win. So,
and
but
we would have just lost in regulation.
I don't know. I like the idea of going for 2 there, put it out of reach. With as crazy as
I
that
like
game
I like
was.
forcing a team to go for 2 because it's not as high percentage as the extra point.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah. So that is what it is. And then the other play that the entire world, not just the Penn State community, but all of Twitter and all the world, is the game-winning dive that Penix stretches out. The ball clearly hits the ground before it hits the pylon, but people are saying from another view that the tip of the ball is actually over the line, breaks the plane, so it is a touchdown. My biggest problem with this is you just can't tell. Like I'm as biased as they come, so I was screaming Saturday night that he's down. The ball hits out of bounds before it hits the pylon. No way is this a touchdown. No way. They called a touchdown on the field, so you have to have conclusive evidence to overturn it. And there's no angle of like directly above the plane for the goal line or from the pylon cam like they have in a lot of places now. Like I just don't know why you don't have that view if there's going to be a call like that. Like I don't know. I'm rambling again because I'm just frustrated thinking about it. But what were your thoughts on that play, that situation, the whole thing?
I thought it was the wrong call. I think he was short, but it's close enough that I can't go, holy shit, they robbed us.
Yeah, and that's the problem is it's close enough that it has to be so indisputable, conclusive evidence that it is short. And like what pisses me off is like super athletic by him. His body is somehow in the air and none of him is like down while he's stretching. But the bottom of the ball hits the ground. I think everyone agrees on that. That's very clear. Bottom of the ball hits the ground before it hits the pylon. And there's just no angle to show you, like I said, either from a pylon cam, which I don't know if you would have been able to see it anyway since he's like kind of angled weird. But why is there not like an overhead that you can see directly over the goal line? I don't know.
I've seen some pictures of it that there are angles where I go, I think it's obvious that he's short, and I've seen some angles of it where I go, it looks like the tip of the ball may be like on the white line, but again, it's just
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we could ramble on this forever. So it is what it is. That was the call. That ended the game. We go 0-1. So that sucks. But let's go through some Twitter questions. We'll spark some conversation and some debate here. Jason Gibb says, "What is Noah Kane's status?" So Pat, I know you're the guy that James Franklin just tells all the health and injury updates to. Can you give us an update on on
Yes.
Noah Kane?
The update is James Franklin thought this game would be too out of hand if Noah Kane started. So he wanted to give us all the show, and he's holding Noah Kane out for the rest of the season. I don't
Oh,
know.
yeah, no one knows. Jason, I appreciate your question. Thank you for writing in. We really do appreciate that. There is no updates. Franklin always holds these close to the vest. What we saw from some of the reporters, some of the beat reporters that were there, said that he went into the injury tent. You can't really see what happened. I rewatched the game today. I mean, he had, I think, 3 or 4 plays in on that first drive, and then he was gone. It was hard to tell. There was no play where you're like, oh yeah, he got hurt there. But he went into the injury tent. Apparently, he was visibly frustrated. Journey Brown was over there trying to like help him, but people said he was on crutches and a boot afterwards, which not great to see. But we have no idea. And Franklin is not one to typically give updates on this. So basically, we'll wait to see the depth chart for this week and see where it stands. My guess is he likely won't be back this week, but I hope that he is. I hope that he's well. I hope that he's getting better. Hopefully, it's nothing too serious. Next up, Jeffrey Walliser Jr. says, "Which of these two things frustrated you more? Clifford's struggles or defense failing to protect a lead again?"
Um, So this one's kind of split for me. I'll put it this way. I think what frustrates me more in the long run is defense failing to protect the lead, because I view that as an ongoing issue that we have. Clifford's struggles, I think, were more of what lost us this game than our defense, but I don't view that as something that's really going to be what he did, what his struggles were that day. 2 interceptions. Everything else he did pretty well. I don't think he's going to be a guy that throws a lot of interceptions at any point in his career.
Sure, I'll give you
But
that.
our defense not protecting leads late has been an issue for like 4 years.
Yes, but again, I think a lot of this is coaching, is game management, is things that put us in that situation. I think our defense played really well for the most part.
No, I agree with you.
And so my point of them failing to protect a lead, they're the only reason we were in a position to have a lead. We throw 2 interceptions with giving them excellent
inside our own
position.
40-yard line.
Yeah, we bring in Will Levis, who fumbles the ball in the red zone. Defense gets it back the very next series with a fumble of their own to give us a chance at a field goal, which we missed, if I'm getting my drives correct.
I think you're right.
There's the point where I don't know if we had a turnover on downs. I think it was the one
4th and 2. We ran the ball.
Yeah, Kevon Lee shutdown. Kevon Lee had a great game. I thought we didn't ride him nearly enough. He was the hot hand, but we on that one where he was 4th and 1 and he got shut down. Keziah Holmes was in like the first 3 plays before that. Defense comes up with a big stop to give us a chance to come back and actually score to get that Jahan touchdown. So I think overall in this game particularly, our defense is the reason we were even in it. Otherwise, this could have been a blowout.
I agree with you.
If they threw for us, if they threw for 370 like they did last year, like this game's gone. And we're sitting there going, oh shit, do we really have a problem? So for me, Clifford's struggles do bother me more. I'm going to read one other question from Brandon, from the program. Says, does Sean Clifford have the yips? He continuously has 0 pocket awareness and scrambles too early, taking his eyes off the developing routes. It's backyard football, basically, when he feels someone come within 3 yards of him. This is unsustainable. What does the team do to fix this? Is this fixable? That's like 6 questions in one. Thank you, Brandon. It worries me. And we talked about, the film breakdown for the blog he did on his mechanics and some of the issues. And like, as you're watching, you see some of that come out. So I was going through watching the game today and doing my positivity thread. And there was one play where he starts to take off, but keeps his eyes upfield and finds Keandre Lambert for a nice completion, which was beautiful. The problem with that, and this is more of a theme throughout the rest of it, is there was a really nice pocket. There was no defender within 4 or 5 yards of him, and he starts to take off. So I don't know if this is subconscious lack of trust in the O-line. I don't know if this is him just being more confident in his running game than having receivers open downfield. I don't know where it comes from, but I see Cliff trying to run more than throw, like more often than not. Like even the 60-yard completion to or touchdown to Dotson, he starts to take off and then throws it when he realizes he's open. Like if that happens 1 second later, that touchdown doesn't exist and Cliff gets, maybe 10 yards for a rush. But I think he relies way too much on that, and he's very quick to start taking off as soon as anything even looks like it's going to break down. Now, my thoughts on the O-line are, I don't think they look very good either, but I worry about Cliff in that sense of he looks to run way too often.
I think I generally agree with what you're saying, but I thought his pocket presence in this game was better than it was last season. One big thing that I thought he did last season that he didn't do this weekend was run himself into a sack. They had no sacks that game. I'm pretty sure
they had one or two.
Against Clifford, or was it the Will Levis? Because that was technically a sack. The fumble.
Oh, really?
Happened in the backfield. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Well, I mean, if they're not sacks, they're 1 yard gains when he's just getting over the line. So like
I don't think he was as bad with this game as he was last season.
I didn't personally love it. We'll agree to disagree on that. What worried me the most is I don't know if it was a product of the pocket presence or what, but just airmailed a lot of things. So the first interception, it was a screen. He had the screen. Defense comes in because the line bails out to go protect for the.
They had some guys sitting on it though. But
still, I
gotta be honest with you. To me, it looked like if he completed that pass, was it to Devin Ford?
Mm-hmm.
It looked like he was getting tackled right away.
Which is fine. That happens. Either complete the pass and he does it, or throw it out of bounds. I mean, get rid of the ball. But he just absolutely airmailed it to the defender.
And he did the same thing with the Freiermuth interception.
Yes,
he had him open and he just overthrew him.
He had him open. He had him to a point where Pat has his guy beat, and the safety is coming directly down. If he leads him properly, Pat's gone.
No, that was a big gain. Yeah,
huge. And he had a couple of other overthrows. There was a 3rd and 12 after we had a false start, which penalties are another huge thing that happened in this game. 3rd and 12, he had Daniel George and just completely overthrew him. So
I also thought in the second half, though, he looked a lot better. He did. Other than the first drive, I thought he didn't look good in the first half. And then I thought he came out kind of settled down in the second half, wasn't as jumpy, and was completing more passes. He really wasn't overthrowing guys in the second half.
He definitely looked better, and I mean that goes back to are these some of the kinks that you work out in tune-up non-conference games that you don't have a chance to? I mean, yeah, Indiana's a good team. Obviously, they played better than us. I would expect and hope for more. Am I worried about Cliff? A little bit. I mean, do I love him? Of course. Am I going to root for him? Yes. Do I think he's the guy that can get it done for us? I have no idea. I just don't know. And this is the kind of stuff that's like, it's frustrating and discouraging, but yeah, I don't know. That's where I stand on Cliff.
I was more hopeful about it, I said, because as the game went on, I thought he looked better.
Fair. Yeah, I mean, second half was better in general. Defense let up 3 points in the second half before that final drive. Defense looked better in the second half. Cliff looked better in the second half. The run game is a little concerning without, Journey and Noah. Let's keep going through these questions, though. There's some, let's see, PSU fan 81, Grego Baker says, did Coach Franklin and co peak in 16 and 17? If not, when does he become, quote, elite? His big post-game presser following the 18 OSU loss brings this to mind. There were a couple questions about this. There's another one. Jarrett Gold says, is there any legitimacy to concerns that the window has closed on Franklin? I think the long-term outlook of the program is really good, but I seem to be just about the only one. And then Scotty does know, Scotto21, nice name, said, maybe I am biased, but in following college football, I've never seen more fair weather fans that truly don't know what they're talking about than when Penn State loses a game. The Fire Franklin crowd have made following updates on social media unbearable. So Franklin company, elite, good, great, window.
I liked Scotty's tweet. I'm going to throw it out there. I liked his tweet. Listen, I get that it's frustrating when we lose these games that we shouldn't. And it does seem like every season we drop one that we shouldn't. Mm-hmm. Okay. Is that frustrating? Yes. But people, especially Penn State fans, are almost as bad as Michigan fans at not understanding what the general view of everyone else of our program is. Mm-hmm. If you asked anyone under the age of 40 if Penn State is a blue blood football program, most of them say no. Okay? Like that's just the reality of the situation. And like, not to mention, I'm sorry, like even like in the heyday of Joe Paterno, like these rose-tinted glasses that people look back on that era with. Like, I love Joe Paterno. He was a tremendous coach. But like there were a lot of years where we were mediocre under Joe Paterno. There were, and even the stretches of where we were great. Like I think that I brought this up last season that Franklin has put together more consecutive double-digit win seasons than like most of Joe Paterno's career.
Yeah.
And Joe Paterno was there for like 40 years. Franklin's been here for 7.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, and we have one of what I would consider the 3 best programs in the country in our division that we have to play every season.
Yeah.
It's name me another program that is doing better than us with what we have to contend with. Like Georgia is probably the only one you could tell me that routinely has one of the best programs in their country in their division that they have to play every season and routinely finishes ranked higher than us. Like there's no team in the ACC that's doing that against Clemson. There's no other team in the SEC that's doing it against Alabama. Texas isn't doing it against Oklahoma.
Yeah. No, I think you're spot on with all that. My take on it, and we've gone into the details of like why we like Franklin, the difficulties of the conference, the situation, all of that. Like my biggest thing with it all is who do you want to bring in? Like
Exactly.
people are very, very quick to the fire this guy because we need someone new. The only time that really works is if you're a Jets fan and you're talking about Adam Gase. But really, like at this point, who else do you want to bring in to replace Franklin? Because like any of the top coaches at other places aren't going to leave where they are to become the head coach at Penn State. Any coordinator is going to be unproven, and you're taking a chance. Like Franklin is a guy who's gotten our program to a between good and great. I think I like if we have that meter of
I think
like
closer to great than good.
yeah, and either way, like I'll play the
He's
devil's
got to
advocate.
fix things about his game management.
Yeah, of course.
Absolutely.
And like I said, I'll be the devil's advocate. Say we're just good. Say we're not great. Like what I don't know. What else do you want to do? Recruiting in general has been very good. On-field production after sanctions and from a time where we weren't supposed to ever play or win another game has been good. Does it suck to lose to teams that we shouldn't lose to? Yeah. But like that's football, that's sports. That's like why we watch. Like if you were just supposed to win the games you win and you lose the games you're supposed to lose, like what would be the point of watching and what would be the point of like being invested and having the emotions? So does it suck? Yeah, it sucks to lose to Indiana. It sucks. Like it really, really sucks. Do I want to fire Franklin? No.
Also, not to mention, like outside of this game, I can't name off the top of my head any times we've lost to a bad team. Like we lost to Minnesota last year when I thought we should have won. Minnesota was still very good. We've lost to Michigan when I thought we should have won. Michigan was a good program those seasons. Like it's not like we're going out there and routinely losing to a team like Indiana, who also isn't even bad. But like,
yeah, I mean they're unranked.
How many unranked losses do we have under Franklin?
Very, very nice segue. So CJ Scalzetti writes into us and says, so is this the comprehensive list of terrible losses of the James Franklin era, either by decollapsing or bad management? Again, I'm going to put a moratorium on the decollapsing part. I don't like that. 2014, Maryland. 2015, Northwestern. 2016, USC. Really? 2017 and 18,
I mean, it was a bad loss, but it wasn't a bad team.
Yeah, 2017 and 18 is Ohio State and Michigan State. We lost to both of them both of those years. 18 Kentucky bowl game, 19 Minnesota, and 20 Indiana.
So Indiana is the only unranked one that happened after the championship season.
Yeah, 2014 and 15. I mean, Franklin's just getting in the door. Those are when we're not great yet. Yeah, and this to your point earlier, like it sucks that if you lose one game a season, your season is kind of over because that's what the playoff and the instant gratification does. If you're not in the playoff, you're not good, right? That's the mentality a lot of people have. Because realistically, like bowl games just don't mean that much. Like even if you're in a Rose Bowl or a Cotton Bowl, that's not the playoff. Like, yeah, it's fun and it's exciting, but people just don't get as hyped. And I'm sure the players do. I'm sure the coaches do. Like that's exciting as shit for them. But for fans who sit at home, they look at it and say playoff or bust, which is probably not fair. It's probably a ridiculous thought,
Yeah.
but that's
Joel
what it
Klatt
is.
did a great segment on that. That like one of the things he doesn't like about the playoff is that it has devalued everything else.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
let's be honest, it's an unfair standard for most programs.
It is, and that's the thing. So it's one of two things. You either have that mentality and you're constantly upset and disappointed, or you don't have that mentality, and I mean that's okay too. But maybe you're just not as invested. Like personally, for me, I have that mentality. Like if we're not in the playoff, like that's not it's not great.
It's disappointing, but it doesn't mean
Yeah, it
doesn't
doesn't mean
mean
we're
that.
bad. Right,
Yeah,
right, right.
like how many times in the last even under Joe Paterno, how many times were we consistently finishing in the top 4?
Yeah,
I don't
probably
know
not
the
many.
answer off the top of my head, but I'm sure it wasn't like
Yeah,
all
probably
the
not
time.
many. Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, it sucks. We lose. We start 0-1. I know we're rambling here. A couple more comments from the Twitter fam. CJ also says felt like we got really good pressure from the DNs all game. I agree. I thought they looked great. Loves Bowdry,
And this was
Patrick
a game
Fields.
where they didn't have a lot of opportunity to do that either, so it was impressive. It was a lot of
Yeah,
quick passes
yeah. Love how
until that
Tariq and
last
JPJ
drive.
looked. Agree, they looked good. CJ asks, were you surprised there was not more offensive line shuffling? 4 or 5 starters played every snap, and only Thorpe was in rotation with Holmes. I said it before. I didn't think the offensive line looked great. I know we didn't let him any sacks, but I don't know if it's Clifford being uncomfortable because of history or what. But like it looked like he was constantly not waiting for anything to develop in a pocket and just kind of bailing out on it. But I don't think they looked particularly good in the run game. There were so many times where people were getting hit in the backfield as soon as they get the ball. We were constantly running these little swing passes, which I don't know if that's Shiraka's version of his slants this year, but we ran to the running backs these quick swing passes. We ran them to Pat Fry and to Brenton Strange a couple times, which to me was kind of a product of not having time in the pocket. We didn't have a downfield presence. It didn't seem like there was anything developing downfield other than the touchdown to Dotson and a couple other things. So was I surprised there's not more shuffling? No, because I don't think we should be shuffling. Like if I don't have data on this, but if you look at the best offensive lines in the country, it's probably those 5 starters starting, playing, and only getting subbed in when somebody needs a breather or gets hurt or something like that. So no, I don't want to see a lot of subbing. We did run not a lot, but we ran a couple of 6-0 line sets where they brought Wallace in as the 6th offensive lineman. A lot of just big jumbo sets with 2 tight ends. So I think you're going to see a lot of that. But personally, I don't really want to see a ton of shuffling.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the offensive line looked good, not great. I didn't think Cliff was under any undue amount of pressure.
Yeah, but it's Indiana, man. Like that's my problem, and I don't want to look ahead because we'll do a preview show. What's going to happen at Ohio State with some of the best rushers in the country? Like it maybe let me rephrase it. Maybe if I don't say the offensive line looked bad, I am concerned that they didn't look elite against Indiana. Like
I think that's fair. Yeah, no,
like you should, if you are a number 8 team in the country, this is an offensive line that returns guys like Mennett and Fries for extra years when they quote unquote could have gone to the NFL. You have young promising talent in Rasheed Walker, in hopefully Caden Wallace. Like you got guys like Miranda and Thorpe who've played again. Like you should look elite against a team like Indiana, and we just didn't. And again, these guys are better athletes in their life than I will ever be at anything in my life. But as a casual fan and observer, we didn't look great.
I think that's a fair criticism. It was a, like I said, I thought we looked good, not great, but it was a game where our offensive line should have looked great. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's most of it. Is there anything else that we missed? Anything that we didn't hit on? I know this is kind of long. I wanted to keep this a little bit shorter, but let's be honest, I never do. Anything else in this game that you wanted to talk about or that we didn't get into?
Yeah. This is like a weirdly specific rant I'm going to go on that isn't totally indicative of what happened in the last drive.
Okay.
But I thought I saw it at the beginning of the last drive where there's not a lot of time left on the clock. And I think it's something we see often in the leads that we have blown, where there's short time and there's this mentality of don't get beat deep. No, fuck that. Get beat deep. Don't get beat short. Because worst case scenario, at least in this one, is they tie the game. That's the worst thing that can happen. I'd way rather they tie the game and we have 45 seconds left to go down the field than 3.
Yeah.
Like getting beat deep isn't the end of the world, because I think you're seeing it more and more like in the NFL now, where the clock is a bigger deal than points. It's like what Mike Vrabel did. the other week where he
Yeah.
intentionally got a penalty so they could have more time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just.
I do. It's a good rant. I think you're right. I mean, I'll add one on top of that. Hey, don't get in situations where you need to worry about how much time is left for your game-winning field goal against an unranked team.
Also, by the way, we could have run one more play before we kicked the field goal.
Yeah. I was
We
just
had 8 seconds left. We could have gotten 5 more yards, and maybe that field goal was good.
Yeah,
and I know that's like a kind of that it shouldn't be what breaks our back, but like,
right.
I think we could have done it.
Well, the issue there is we didn't have a timeout. So if you end up with a sack, if there's a bad snap, game's over. Which again, maybe that's a risk you take, but I think we used our timeout like on their 2-point conversion. So maybe we saved that. Again, my thing, don't get into situations where you have to worry about things like this against inferior teams. And this is like, I've probably badmouthed defenses in the past too. Like, defense collapsing at the end of the game, I think is a product of the situation, is a product of the game management, is a product of all the issues that lead up to that point. Again, your defense was lights out on the second to last drive. Shaka Toney, back-to-back sacks. Him and Oweh, Chase Penn out of the pocket on the 3rd down. It's a 4th and 21. You get the ball back basically in the red zone. The game is over. I don't want to hear about the defense breaking down to lose the game. Your defense won you the game. Then we lost it. So shit happens. Yeah. We're 0-1. We got Ohio State next week. Let's end on a positive note. How you feeling about next week? Obviously, we'll save official predictions. Mentally, how you feeling?
Okay. I hate to say this.
We're going to win.
I don't think we win this game. However, the good things that I saw make me say that we could hang around long enough to win it. If we don't commit 100 yards of penalties, if Sean Clifford doesn't throw 2 interceptions, I think this is a game that, at the very least, we're in it at the end of the game. The problem is, can we do that?
Love it. Let's stay positive. I'm with you. I don't know that we can win, but I do think we can keep this close. I don't know if I really believe that, but I'm putting out positive vibes right now.
Not to mention, Ohio State, even though they won in a blowout.
What do we say? Go ahead.
Ohio State, even though they won in a blowout, it was 14-14 deep in the second quarter. True. To a Nebraska team that I think is substantially worse than us.
Yeah. So here's my
if we can stay in it, we can win it.
Yeah, here's my parting thoughts. Obviously, you don't want to open the season 0-2, and if we're getting all the negativity out right now, if that does happen, we may drop out of the top 25 for the first time in a long time, which would really, really suck. If we keep this game close, if we keep it competitive, if we play the best football we can, then you take that and you turn the corner, right? Hopefully you stay ranked even as an 0-2 team with a very close loss, and then you take it and you run the table for the rest of the season. Are there some other tough games looking at the beginning of this season? Sure, but I mean, I don't know. I'm not going to give up after one game. Like, what? There's no fun in that. I love this team. I love our guys. I say it over and over again. I'm going to hope for the best next week.
Yeah. And if you want another positive, I thought Ohio State's offensive line didn't look great, and I thought their running game didn't even look good. And that is a weakness on strength matchup for us. We have what I think is a tremendous defensive line, and we have what is definitely a tremendous run defense. And if they can't establish the run, they could struggle.
Yeah. Listen, positive vibes only here at No Names All Game. I can't even say our own name right. Thank you guys for listening. As always, is not the way we wanted to start the season, but we appreciate you. We appreciate the interaction on Twitter. If you like this, give us a review on iTunes. Apparently that helps. And we will be here with you every step of the way, regardless of what happens this season. We will have an Ohio State preview show later this week. It'll be live on our YouTube. We did it for the first time ever. Last week was a lot of fun, so come hang out and chat with us. I'll tweet it out when we're going to do it, and we'll be here all season for you. So does it suck? Yes. Is it in the rear view? Yes. We were on to Ohio State. We are.